don't go anywhere, people. If you're attending and you're about to get up, come right back, because this is, I know we know it's a long session. Yeah, this is going to be good. Brian's got some stuff for us that is high impact, that is proven to work, that connects dots, I think, and answers some, fills in some blanks, answers some mysteries for people. So why don't we start with Judy? Judy, please tell us a bit about yourself.
Hello, can you hear me?
Sound great.
Okay, good. I am Judy Fox. I'm a LinkedIn business accelerator. I get a lot of my clients 1 million views in 90 days.
Wow. Sarah.
My name is Sarah Evans. I'm a digital correspondent and consultant, and love working with our clients. We focus on digital PR, specifically on the organic and earned side of things, and love helping to tell stories.
Thank you for joining us, Sarah. And Brian Wallace.
Hey, welcome everybody. Brian Wallace here, founder and president of Now Sourcing. We're an infographic agency, but for people who think that that's something that we whip up in 15 minutes, boy, are you in for a treat.
Yeah, this is far beyond.
Change people's minds for a living, which is quite a bit more than just doing a little bit.
And with powerful SEO impact. So, and I appreciate the dressing up for us. I put on a track jacket at least. I wore a t-shirt to work today.
I'm wearing sweatpants, but you know.
We always think about what people are wearing on the bottom.
You guys all look great.
I have yoga pants on.
Because who knows? You never want to do that on a group Zoom.
I love that we're all here together. I'm very excited about this. We have such a short time. Anyone in the audience, please feel free to keep asking questions. We'll get to as many as we can. If we don't get to them, we will answer them offline or directly in one-to-one conversations on social media. But Brian, please take it away.
All right, let's do it. I am sharing over my screen.
Got the screen sharing button pressed? We're not seeing your screen yet. There you go.
There it goes.
Presentation mode, and we're ready to roll.
Here we go. Okay, so welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining the Semrush 5 hours of content. Today, we're going to be talking about infographics, LinkedIn, and PR, the key to growing in a down economy. And I'm not just going to read from the slides. That's about as far as I'm going to read after that.
Thank you.
Yes. Because if you needed that, you could just have like an AI robot or something do this instead of me. So I know we're supposed to talk about all that stuff that we just talked about, but I'm going to challenge some of the ways that we all think about the fundamental disconnect on how people get this wrong. In marketing, content marketing, SEO, PR, LinkedIn, video, all these different things. You ever notice how there's so many companies out there and they spend all this time making all this beautiful content, and it's like all these product comparison grids and look at how much we're better than the other person, and here's 10 reasons why to do X instead of Y. Yet it's just so fundamentally wrong, right? When you actually stop and think, that's not how we make decisions, right? We make a decision based on emotion, based on social psychology, based on fight or flight response, the limbic system, all these different things that are going on in our brain. And a lot of times we're making really bad decisions if you actually thought about it. Nobody's sitting there reading like a 100-page white paper, at least most of the time. A lot of us, we're counting on our friends, we're counting on our social grid, we're counting on 5-star random Amazon reviews from whoever the heck is doing it. And sometimes those are bought and sold. So just reimagine with me. And like I said at the beginning, we almost retrain people how to think. Again, connecting and resonating with them on an emotional level. Then we get to the story. I'm sure many of you have heard story brand, the hero's journey, and all of that, walking people through the story. And then having all those data points to back it up. So now let's go all the way back. And we're going to get into all the specifics on how infographics are a good fit for that, and then all of the little web that's all around it. Buckle up, here we go.
I'm ready.
So like I said, it's gotta be that research and storytelling. I see so many of these things fail so bad simply because there's nothing to it. A lot of people say, hey, can't you just put 10 bullet points together? And it's like, no, this isn't a top 10 list. You have to keep and hold their attention. You ever see all these different stats and facts out there that people have the same attention span as a goldfish and 2-3 seconds, all that, yet we're all gonna sit there and we're all gonna watch Tiger King or whatever Netflix is shoving down our throat this weekend, right? It's the same people that have no attention span yet can binge watch things for hours. So once we have a good story and we combine that with the data that people are interested in, then we can really get things hopping. So that's the key. That's always going to happen. Then we'd be remiss if we didn't have the design element of an infographic, right? It's not an info, it's an information graphic. When you don't have something that's going to look good enough, a lot of people, they're panicked. We're in unprecedented times, and they're just going to move on, right? Plain and simple. It's got to look better than the random standard words on a page, or just dancing around with templates. Here's where things get a little fun, and we're going to be able to dive into a couple different things. So promotion, really surrounding a prospect, surrounding a buyer, surrounding people that would find this interesting, from a funnel of something that's a great big idea at the top, funneling all the way down to a key call to action, is incredible. Now, part of that can be SEO, part of that can be PR, part of that is even LinkedIn and just different influence out there. I'm just going to share with you a little link that we've got over here. So this is something that I do quite often if you follow me on LinkedIn, where you'll see these little things where you can actually just scroll through. So this is nothing but an infographic that is chopped up so you can swipe or slide, depending if you're on desktop or mobile.
Nice pro tip.
Yes, that shares extremely well and will also help on the SEO perspective. This
I want to share that I shared a document feature about this event.
Did you? Wow, Judy's on top of it.
Excellent. Yep. Yeah. So I think it definitely opens the door to all the different things that we can do from an infographic, meets LinkedIn, meets some of the newer sharing kinds of things. This isn't brand new, but a lot of people miss it. And just real quick, if you all don't know where that is, and I'll keep this brief. If you click on your home, it's the document thing right there. That's what you want to do. So without further ado, getting back over here, I know this is something that we all were kind of talking about in the background before we actually started this. This is a famous case that we did where many of you have probably heard the term Moneyball, sabermetrics, all these different kinds of things. Yep. So this was a basketball player that totally typified the complete paradigm shift from baseball into basketball, which was a little slower to adopt. But by the time we told the story, had all the visuals, had all the emotions, had all the confrontations and all of that, we said, hey, this guy is just as powerful, if not more, than all the other top players in the league. And by the time we did all of the research and the design and the emotion and the stats to back it up, we got into ESPN, all sorts of different sports networks. Famous people started tweeting it around. Everybody was talking about it. And most importantly, he ended up getting a $64 million contract at the end of the day, which would not have been happening. So sometimes at the end of the day, content is great and content is king and queen. And we can talk about all these tropes and all these horrible things all day long. But the reality is sometimes beyond links, beyond SEO, beyond influence, there's just this higher level game that could be going on out there. And like you had made a reference to before, from an SEO perspective, this was a place that we fairly recently did all about how Amazon makes money. And it kind of tickles your brain. It's like, well, yeah, I wonder how that does work. And oh, look, there's this royal nobleman who's sitting on a pile of cash with the thing that you and I probably have like 5 of these on our deck right now. As soon as we're done with this, we'll go check. And it has all sorts of really interesting facts and stats. Even as you go to hold your interest and attention, for instance, I know we're relatively short on time. Look at this. Just in 2016, Amazon made $2.4 billion from all of you that forgot to redeem your Amazon gift card. So there were lots of different places. This was picked up in probably about 150 different links and publications. And some of them ran with that as a headline. Right? So that is going to really make a big difference. And even if we're bringing this to all the stuff that's going on, I feel like every couple of days we're pushing out different things that are COVID-19 related. And I don't know about you guys, but I feel like if you look at the news cycle as a pie chart, maybe 90% of it or something crazy like that is everything going on COVID-19, COVID-19, COVID-19. So how in the world do you stand out over stuff like that? Well, doing it as an infographic, so it's just visually different, has a beginning, middle, and end, has a story, has that funnel, has the data. This was in nearly 100 publications, even in a crowded field. So I think that really does make quite a bit of the difference. So I know we've got really important and wonderful friends here that I'd love to hear all of what you have to say. And I'm sure we may have a little bit of time to turn it over to the audience as well. I like to keep visuals kind of short. So
it's excellent. It's, I mean, a cut above immediately from text. Sarah, you're a pro at this. Does this connect with you?
It absolutely does. And in fact, I like to kind of joke that when Brian and I can put our heads together, we can create some sort of superpower, because he's proficient, more than proficient at all of the things I'm not good at. And I love to surround myself with experts that balance out the areas where I'm not so great and in PR, or just don't have an expertise. And the beautiful thing about public relations is it isn't just getting, you know, tier 1 media placements. When I first started in my career, it was all about, can you get a positive story above the fold and then measure that out and find out what ad equivalency was. And now it goes much deeper, much further than that. Is it, can we go right to the audience in online forums and groups? Can we get media placements in tier 1 and tier 2? Can we get a feature by an influencer on YouTube? An influencer is subjective, but meaning more subject matter expert who has an expertise in something. Can we continue the conversation online? Maybe you didn't get that media placement, but the reporter has a great content series happening on Twitter. Can you interject or integrate into that conversation? So we're using a lot of strategy, a lot of tactics, and of course still traditional media still matters and spend a lot of our time as well.
Judy, your thoughts?
Well, first, I want to say that I love how Brian shares infographics over on LinkedIn. I think that's very powerful, but also starting from a place of social proof and positioning. LinkedIn is such a powerful place for you to really highlight who you are, who you've worked with. All of that adds up on your profile to, I'm sure, feed into that trustworthiness of getting positioned into more PR, more opportunities. It's like a never-ending, I don't know, tornado funnel. I don't know what to call it, but like it can take off. I mean, if you just get one position, one infographic, like we saw with the basketball player, it can literally take off with the perfect tornado funnel of visibility, PR, and storytelling with visuals that are so easy to consume. And my favorite thing to say about LinkedIn, people are on there, they're in their own brains, they're deleting, distorting, and generalizing, and infographics will cut through the noise of all the text that they're seeing.
Yeah, it seems like there's a feedback loop, right? It's like the audience makes it more visible to influencers and PR, which make it more visible to a much larger audience. But what Brian's also emphasizing here is the psychology in the moment of the person viewing it, and to guide them through a series of thoughts and feelings that trigger something, which I think is beyond what a lot of people just infographic promotion. Briefly, Elliot asked a question. I noticed VR and animated infographics on your menu of services, Brian. Mm-hmm. What is VR and animated infographics like? What is it? What are you talking about?
Sure. So before I answer that question, let's just jump back a quick second. Sure. There's a reason why a lot of our work you'll see out there tends to be flat, two-dimensional, and people are like, oh, come on, like you're still just sharing these image things. What is this, 10 years ago? What are you doing? Come on. Well, here's a little secret about the media. A lot of stuff is just, I say this a lot, the internet is just held together by bubblegum and Scotch tape. You would be horrified or embarrassed or some kind of panicked feeling if you actually saw some of the horrible back end of a lot of news websites. A lot of journalists are not technologists. A lot of places can't embed videos, can't put in pictures, just stuff that you couldn't believe that is still a struggle in the year 2020. So a lot of stuff is very much in the dark ages. So at least from when looking at the overall content strategy, it's very important to start crawling and walking before we run and do every fancy thing in the world. Yeah. So if we know that we're going to get the low-hanging fruit, if we know that we're going to score basketball contracts and all sorts of SEO value and all sorts of PR and social proof and leads and sales, everything top, mid, and bottom of funnel, it's not necessary that we need to do all of these fancy bells and whistles. That being said, once everybody has the basics down and they have a velocity of content, sure, let's go for it. Now, sometimes interactive, and Sarah is going to laugh because we were actually just talking about this the other day. It's as wide as an ocean, how many different things we could be talking about from an interactive perspective. That could mean maybe just spicing it up with a little bit of hover over JavaScript or something like that. There's different programs for that. Sometimes it could mean animated GIFs in it. Sometimes it could mean a whole parallax display. We're not going to get into all the technical details of it, but sometimes going fully VR, AR, or mixed reality, which we pioneered back in 2016, I feel like it hasn't been globally adopted on the internet yet. So if you're at remember when we all traveled around and we would go to some place and there'd be an installation of it, that's kind of cool. But until I feel like everybody has basic VR built into all of their devices from a good cost perspective, and you don't have these giant goofy boxes on your head, and everybody's getting there, it's a little slower to adopt. I feel like that's when we're really going to see it going out there. So a lot of stuff has been really kind of cutting edge and waiting on there.
Yeah, don't build your strategy on the edge case. Unless your target audience is people who all use VR all the time.
Right.
Infographic promotion is coming up in questions.
Sure.
Let's start with you again, Brian, briefly. Basic promotions, blocking and tackling, getting traction.
Sure. So again, I like to preface things with, let's set things up right for success before we run off getting all excited and we fail. So the first thing that I see a lot of people do wrong is they don't QA and test things. So they don't set things up correctly. An infographics bucket list, it's not like climbing Mount Everest or something. Don't you want to have something to show for it at the end of the day, as opposed to, hey, I made an infographic, hooray. We do that every day, big deal. What are you going to say? What are you going to show for it? What are KPIs? What kind of ROI? What kind of goals did you set up? Just that you made an infographic? Anybody could do that very quickly. So test. Make sure it is on your site. Make sure it's on your site in the appropriate spot when it comes to your site architecture. Sometimes that may be a blog post. Sometimes that could be a landing page. A lot of sites, especially like tech B2B kinds of places, have a whole resource section, and they'll have infographics and white papers and videos and webinars and stuff like that. So just depending on how sophisticated your architecture is, first it has to match that. Then testing that page. Does it work across browser, platform, mobile, tablet? Do you have text on the page? Does it make sense from an SEO perspective? Is there an embed code? Or do I have to see for the 50th time today that the quotes on the embed quote are pointed the wrong way and then it doesn't work and nobody knows why? Endlessly, I'll show you things that would just blow your mind, that you're starting with a failed grade before you even begin. We have to make sure that everybody sees this in as good a fashion as possible. And we already talked about how some of the back ends are pretty bad. Once that's done, it's really getting a whole web of interest. So there are some places that just run infographics and there's directories and stuff like that. That's okay. There's some stuff that's pay to play. That's a whole other hour stuff that I'm going to need a psychological call to deal with that. I am very philosophically against a lot of the pay to play stuff, especially the gray area stuff. Please don't do that because it doesn't really benefit you in the long run. A lot of stuff, as Sarah, Judy, Andy, and I can tell you, comes from years of working relationships and trust and quality. It's all of that stuff that really makes this powerful. So I and other people on my team are featured contributors and journalists in our own right. And we have a lot of friends in the media. So when they know that they can trust us and we're going to come with a quality resource that looks good, but is also factually accurate, unbiased as much as a human can be, and really comes and brings the goods as opposed to just theoretically being a good idea, that's going to be essential. So we're really trying to make a lot of noise in social, but also the long-term play from an SEO perspective and a PR perspective, just kind of sitting on those crosshairs.
Yeah. I think in a way, it's maybe not a question of how to promote the infographic. It's to use the infographic as a way to promote something else. Yes. If you wrote an article that's keyword focused and you're trying to build links to it, make the infographic version of it and pitch that to someone else and refer back to the original to build a link to something that needs the authority benefit.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Sarah, are infographics successful as parts of pitches, or what are your go-tos when it comes to promotion, or how do these work well with promotion?
So it just depends. It runs the gamut on what the strategy is. I actually have clients that we do recommend an infographic, and of course we always go with Brian first and now sourcing to build part of the strategy. It's a startup, don't have a lot of traction, visibility, recognition. An info would be a great strategy to start getting them visibility and traction in a specific place. Standpoint, giving them content that various outlets may want to run because it's simply morally appealing and it's, factual, accurate, that sort of thing. Is it right for everything? Maybe not. If you're coming out with, we just got $17 million in funding and the news itself is credible and it reaches a very specific outlet, that would likely not be part of the plan unless you wanted to do a phase 2 of that announcement and then about industry traction and look at all of your competitors and see what money they're raising, put it into a beautiful image. So you can find integrated, but is it part of every plan? Likely not, but PR itself is always changing. Every plan for every client is completely different. So where you'd use Brian, where you'd use Judy to come in, and their expertise are all part of a specific moments in time. And the same PR, is everything necessitate PR or not?
Judy, your thoughts?
I was just going to share, the concept that when we share these infographics, we create all this content, to have your company page built out on LinkedIn to truly drive traffic back to your website, to make the full circle, that experience when you come across a company on or a person that is being showcased in the news and the media, being highlighted, being presented as PR. We want to make sure that all the things are built out. So when we land there, we don't land on an empty page or no content. And especially if you're creating an infographic, you should be showcasing it and be proud of it everywhere. You should be proud of your PR. You should be proud of where you've been featured. So lean into that and present that really well on LinkedIn, because it will keep creating the next opportunity, the next sale, the next collaboration and contract.
Yeah, I love that. Was that just a gallery? How do you upload more than one image to LinkedIn?
I can share my screen, but it's a document feature. I'm sure Brian has to break up the infographic into different screenshots. I just use PowerPoint or Canva or any type of online imagery.
You upload a PowerPoint to LinkedIn, and it does that with the gallery?
Yeah. Do you want me to share my screen really quick just to show you? No.
I wish.
Okay.
I think we have time.
Darn it.
Let me just answer really quick just how I do it personally. I do a multi-page PDF where I'll actually put breaks in it. So it's a very slightly different version from what you might see on the image version of it. But that's just, it has to do with file types on LinkedIn. So it accepts a few different files. I find PDFs are great. They're great for indexing, SEO. So can't go wrong with that.
Yeah. There's some questions about tools for creating infographics. Do you guys even want to get into that? Is it all custom design, or are there
hire Brian?
I would say I only hire an expert. I don't try to create them. It's not my expertise.
It always cracks me up, honestly. It's like when I hear that, I say to people, it's like, when you bought your car, did you order a bunch of parts from Amazon or eBay, or did you go to an auto dealership like a normal person? When you wanted to move into a house, did you make your own? Did you go to Home Depot and get a bunch of hammer and nails, or did you buy a house? It doesn't make any sense to use a bunch of templates and stuff like that. If you want to do something quick and dirty and stuff like that, that's great. But if you want to use this as the lead in for a whole campaign, it just doesn't really make sense. Custom way to go.
To be quite honest, I use tools like Canva or something like that as a starting point to help start the conversation with the professional. I'll say, here's conceptually what we're thinking. Here are some of the key points, facts, statistics that we have access to, or I'll break it down in a doc visual. But I use that as simply a template to get the conversation started.
Cool idea. And I think, it's a valid thing. I know Venngage has templates, Canva has templates, but this panel, at least, I think for now, at least, we're focused on the strategy, goals, results. What about KPIs? There was a question about that as well. How are you measuring, Brian? What is the, it worked or it didn't? Briefly, can you tell us how you know if it was successful?
It's a very important question, because I don't understand how people are pitching random marketing services if they don't even have any set of expectations. Well, we're going to get the word out there. That's cool. You could go send a bunch of direct mail if you wanted to do that. You could get on the radio. All these things have numbers and metrics. Why can't you? Because you live on the internet. Get off your high horse. Come on. So here's what we've established as our yardstick. I'm sure there's plenty of people that can disagree with me. So I'm just speaking from experience of doing this for 10, 11 years straight of doing nothing but infographics. So this is what I've learned through the years that everybody seems to agree on and understand the reasons for it. So because we work with lots of different things, business to business, B2B, B2C, H to H, everything in between, all sorts of different industries, companies large and small, different people are going to gravitate to SEO, different people are going to gravitate to PR, social, LinkedIn, all these different places. So what in the heck do we do? I can't control how big the company's social following is. I can't control how big their website is and their traffic is and how well the rest of their other component parts are doing. So what I can control and what I can measure is, I say, and these are not a guarantee, but I would tell people typically we're going to get at least 30, if you're going to shackle our creativity, but more likely 50 different publications and up are going to pick up what you're asking us to do. And we're measuring it, and this goes to the SEO side of the fence, by Maz's domain authority. And certainly we could use Semrush, we could use a lot of different tools too. I just
authority, links, values. Yeah. In other words, pick up, links, coverage, press, mentions, shares, likes, follows. Does that?
Yeah. So if there are notable things that, let's say, an influencer tweeted it or something like that, we could share individual events of things that happened, in addition to, here are the pillars of what's going to help you for the short term, and then also the long term, which will help boost your site and all the rest of your SEO strategy later on.
Love it. Sarah, final thoughts.
I just think it's important to think comprehensively. I love the fact that you've got Brian and myself all together, because we have three very different vantage points, but three unique things that, when powered together, can get a lot of visibility, traction, reach, and engagement for brands. So it's never limited to just one thing. Even myself as digital PR, I'm looking to folks like Brian and Judy to compensate for additional areas when we need to get reach and using it as part of the overall strategy, whatever that is for the brand. So look for leaders in subject areas that can reach, instead of just thinking, I have to be in the New York Times. And that's your success metric. You get lost in all of the other opportunities that are waiting for you.
Thank you for that, Sarah. Judy, final thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I think like we've positioned that when you get connected to the right experts, subject matter experts, and you want to be in the future expanded as your infographic gets more and more reach, finding ways on LinkedIn to position yourself in an evergreen way with that infographic, sharing it as an article on LinkedIn, being found in more Google searches because you created an article. There's so many ways that people can use LinkedIn to have the success of an infographic live on for years.
I want to hang out with you guys more.
Okay. Sounds good to me.
Sure, yeah. One last thing I'll say, just because it was important in the mini deck, but we didn't emphasize it too much. But what Brian just showed is not just a bunch of stats on a tall image. He was storytelling. He was setting it up. He created context and attraction and caught your attention. Pushed your thinking, triggered an emotion. He had an action and a question at the bottom. So I hope that we didn't talk about it a lot on the panel, but I don't want anyone to miss that important point about Brian is basically storytelling in a single image, which maybe go back and look at the slides. We're sharing everything. Watch the recording again. Ask us anything. If we didn't answer a question here, find us online. Brian, where can we find you?
Since there's too many people named Brian Wallace, try to find me at everywhere on social at NowSourcing, and of course, nowsourcing.com.
NowSourcing, thank you. And Judy?
Yeah, so my name is Judy I, that's the key, but you can type into LinkedIn #FoxRocks, the way that it's spelled. And it's kind of fun because you'll find my whole news feed right there.
You are a marketer.
And I've got the attention of a fox.
I was waiting for that.
I love it. I saw it in the background. This
there you go.
Great. Sarah, we all know where to find you, but tell us anyway.
At PR Sarah Evans. You can also email me, Sarah with an H, at Sevans, SEVANSPR.com.
So generous and kind of disarming and surprising when people share their actual email address. I'm Andy at Orbit Media. If anyone wants to write to me, Andy@orbitmedia.com. Thank you guys all for joining us and for being part of this and for adding your wisdom, insights, brilliance. I hope we all do this again sometime. I'll see you all online. We're going to release you now. We have Michael Brenner coming up next.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye.
Michael is here. Michelle is here. Dale is here.